What are some ways to purposely plan and add science effectively into your STEM lessons? We are continuing our STEM in Action series where we kicked it off with guest experts in the field to help connect together different elements of STEM and really zone in on what STEM means and can look like in different capacities. For the second half of the series, I will be sharing my insight and some practical lessons that you can implement in your classroom. The next four episodes are going to focus in on a letter of STEM. And so these will all connect together and give you some practical ideas that you are really going to enjoy. Welcome to the Elementary STEM Coach Podcast, a show that'll help you with lesson ideas, systems, and actionable tips to apply to your classroom. I am your host, Naomi Meredith, a former classroom teacher turned current STEM teacher and coach. With over a decade of experience teaching and a master's degree in STEM leadership, I am here to coach you throughout the year to help you gain back more time to create innovative experiences for your students. Grab your earbuds and let's get started. We are at the time of this recording right in the middle of summer. Maybe some of you have been on summer break for a little while. Maybe some of you are just kicking it off. Wherever you are at, I get it. I understand. June has been a very busy month for me again. You probably know where I was last time in June, and this year has been very busy as well. And so I understand the busyness and like all the cool things that you can do in summer. And so having the on-demand trainings can be extremely helpful where if you're on the go or if you're traveling, one of my favorite things to do is when I'm on the airplanes, I'll listen to trainings or I'll do like cardio machines and do the trainings like at the hotel or whatever. But I understand, like I said, and so I have some on-the-go trainings for you that are perfect for summertime where you can dive in, you don't have to attend live, but can really help support your STEM instruction. I have my STEM Teacher 101 course. So if you are getting started in STEM and don't know where to begin and want somebody to tell you what should I be doing before I even set up all the lessons, and I will share with you different ways of lesson planning, I invite you into my STEM Teacher 101 course. That is a great place to start. If you're looking for strategies on the specific lesson planning, or maybe you were thinking, oh, I want to host my school-wide video news this year, or I would love to host a STEM career day, I have some workshops for you. So all of those workshops are 2 hours, come with tons of resources, and they were live at the time. So I did have teachers who were there for the live trainings, except the STEM Career Day is 100% on demand. However, you can hear that interaction and get access to all those resources right there. And again, be on your way with what you are looking for. So you can find all of that linked in the show notes, or if you even just head to my website, naomimeredith.com, you'll see tabs that go along with the things that I'm talking about. But that's a great way to spend some time with me this summer, but when you are on the go. When you're thinking about implementing science, the format of these next four lessons are going to have the same structure so you know what to listen for and what to really think about. So what we're going to be talking about are standards. So of course, what standards should you use when you are thinking about that part of STEM? So today we're talking about science. Then I'm going to be sharing my top tools that I love using when it relates to that letter in STEM. And then I'm going to give you some lesson ideas where they're mostly focused on science. Of course, they're all encompassing of all sorts of things cross-curricular, which is how you should be planning anyway. I'm very big on that. But that is going to be the structure for these episodes. When it comes to standards, when you are really focusing on the science part of STEM, your state most likely has some sort of science standards that you should be focusing on. I like to base off the NGSS, the Next Generation Science Standards. Those are more nationwide used. Here in Colorado, some of them are based off the NGSS, but I like to teach with the NGSS, so it's more universal. But you need to look at the standards. What should you be teaching at that grade. And in the last episode with Nicole Oshin, in episode 165, we kind of touched on this as well, where if you are really limited on time with teaching, which we all are, but a lot of you teach 1 day lessons, why not make it more purposeful and kind of bounce off of what classroom teachers are doing and teach with those standards? I was spoiled, and there were times where I had more time with kids, but I always planned with standards no matter what. I would just give it a STEM twist. So I will be sharing some lessons with you, but just know that when I am planning lessons, I am always planning with standards. I can't get away with it. It's like ingrained in my soul. So make sure you check out your science standards. When it comes to the top tools, this is hard to pick my favorite, but I do have a few favorites when it comes to the science part of things. One of my favorite tools, and I always would use these, and some of these might sound very random, but there are things that I liked having on hand. I have this little set of 3D toys, if you will, or models of the life cycle of a ladybug. And that is something that would come up all the time. I used to use it as an example or a model for something or show kids, or if I'm talking about insects or life cycles. But having that model was something I pulled out all the time. And likewise, having similar hands-on models. That is one of my favorite things that I love to show. I even taught a in-person STEM class the other day at my local coffee shop, and I was so excited it was sold out. But we were talking about camouflage and how ocean animals, we were talking about octopus, but then we started talking about a lot of ocean animals because kids started talking about it. I'm like, hey, let's keep this going. But I brought in real coral and real seashells that I have actually found from traveling. And so, needless to say, I love having those tangible, hands-on things where kids can see it and touch it and look at it and have it make sense. I've even had times where people have given me things, and you can't keep everything, of course. But I had a parent ask me if I wanted to hold on to a wasp nest for a while. All the wasps were gone. And that was such a cool experience for the kids to see it. Some of them were actually scared of it. I'm like, the wasps are gone. I actually ended up doing a segment on our school-wide video news where I interviewed the kid who brought it in and we put it on the news. And I was answering all the questions I kept getting about it. But having those hands-on models are very, very important, and ones that you could use over and over again. Along with that, with top tools, this kind of flows into everything as well. But I love to travel. I don't know if you guys know that. Maybe you see it on my Instagram. If you follow me on my Instagram at Naomi Meredith _ you'll see I love to travel. But with that, when I travel, I'm always thinking about STEM. I can't get away from it. And I actually take videos and pictures of things that I know my students would love. And I use these photos and pictures as talking points when I am chatting with kids. So of course it's a great get to know you thing. But I will show them, oh my gosh, I, again, with that lesson where I brought the coral, we were talking about animals. So I was telling them about when went whale watching and how the animals didn't want to be camouflaged. They wanted to be showy. And I was showing some videos from that. So even think about that when you're traveling, or if you're going to the zoo, maybe take some extra photos or pictures that you know will connect to a lesson and you can pull them out. So not the types of science tools you might have thought of, but those are things I really love to use to enhance my lessons. Okay, so on to those lesson ideas where, yes, STEM is all integrated, but we're really thinking about how science is the main standard for this subject. So for this series, so when we talk about each letter of STEM for the upcoming episodes and this one, I will be sharing with you a project, a station, and a 1 day lesson. So depending on how long you see kids or what you are looking for, this will give you some good ideas. So, in terms of a project, the standards that I was looking at were in second grade in the NGSS, and it was talking about how weathering and erosion can happen. And so I really zoned in for this project on water erosion. So, with this whole project, it goes through the whole engineering design process. And students are exploring different ways and different inventions out there that really already exist and different inventions that are helping with water erosion. And so, what is really, really tricky, especially for, I would say, third grade and younger, is finding the resources that can help with that imagining and that planning piece. And so, I actually went ahead and wrote articles, short, kid friendly articles, researched, have image examples and audio where kids can use those examples and explore those different inventions. From there, students plan their design using those ideas and other things, combining ideas and what they have learned. And in turn, they actually create an invention using makerspace materials to try to either stop or even slow down the water erosion of the soil. When I've done this with second grade, I've done this quite a few ways where there's certain supplies they could use, or I've even done a shopping method where students shop for supplies. So if you're interested in all of that, go back and listen to episodes 5 and 6 that are all about Makerspace, because I do talk about how to do that shopping piece. When we got to the testing of their designs, again, I did this a few ways as well. One year I had buckets of dirt and soil. So I think I got potting soil, or whatever was the cheapest. And I had those in buckets, and that's where students could test their designs. It was December. So where I live in Colorado, it was very cold. But when I did this lesson again, a different type of time of year, I did this in October and it was a lot warmer. So we were actually able to test our designs outside. Um, it was actually kind of nice doing inside because those buckets of dirt, I was able to have them dry out and they were ready for the next few weeks. But of course, taking kids outside, they couldn't believe their STEM teacher was going with them. So that was a really cool project. In terms of stations, I actually have 4 stations that are centered around the sun, moon, and stars for the first grade standards. But I'm going to talk about the 2 favorites. But I have a whole bundle where there's 4 stations along with this. And like I said, I was looking at the first grade standards, and one that is a fan favorite of my students and also one of my best sellers in my TPT store is geoboard constellations. So I acquired some geoboards when I was shopping in the hallway one day, and really wanted to use those with my kids. And so we talked about constellations for one of the days with the kids. And at that station, they had different images of constellations. They also had a checklist that was in a page protector and a dry erase marker. And with the rubber bands, students were able to build the constellations. They really liked that challenge because each peg kind of represented the stars, if possible. And then once they were finished building, they could take a picture in Seesaw and or they could check it off of their list. And they really liked that accountability piece. Another station that was within those 4 stations is I did moon phase puzzles. So we talked about what a moon phase is and what the different phases looked like. And I actually had all the phases of the moon cut up into puzzle pieces, and students had to problem solve and put those back together, which was a lot harder than they thought. And honestly, doing puzzles might seem like it's kind of a lame activity, but when you think of a STEM station, it really does zone in on those problem solving skills. And they were constantly talking about those moon phases. They did work together as a team. They actually like doing that a lot better when they were at this station. And then one little trick when I had these puzzle pieces is I copied the sets and then I glued them onto colored pieces of paper. So each set had their own color on the back, and that way they wouldn't get mixed up. So that was a really good, helpful tip. So again, There were other stations that went around this standard, but those were two big favorites. And thinking about those 1-day lessons, I've been talking with a lot of you where that is something you are looking for various reasons. And a really great 1-day lesson is building a maglev train track. So I actually created a template where you can actually build stilts for this train track and then have a um, little model that will represent a maglev train or a magnetic levitation train. And using a magnet wand and a really strong science magnet, which can be a little tricky to find, but the stronger the magnet, the better. It will do a better job floating and moving. You can actually demonstrate what magnetic levitation is and how it's another form of transportation. It's not exactly copying a maglev train because the actual tracks they turn off and on really, really fast where it propels the train forward. There's some really cool videos out there. But that is a great 1-day challenge where it's low prep in materials. It really is centered around that 3rd grade standard about magnetic forces. And they also have a model that they can take home with them. Definitely up to you about taking home the magnets and the magnetic wand, but it's a really quick challenge. And with that, I also created the step-by-step directions and also a video. So if you need something a little bit more guided, also have some variations on top of that. That's really, really the heart of STEM, but definitely having those resources and explaining the science behind it and why it works, that can be something that you can definitely implement. As a recap, as we explore more of the science side in this episode, we talked about which standards to really focus on if you want a science-centered lesson. Then I also shared my top tools that might have surprised you, but are really, really good teaching tools. And also shared with you some lesson ideas, which are in various different bundles and different places you can find them. But you could check all those lessons out that I talked about in my TPT shop. And of course, feel free to reach out. I am happy to help you in that way. You can definitely reach out to me on Instagram at Naomi Meredith _. And of course, definitely check it all out on my website, naomimeredith.com. Everything will be linked for you. Get excited for the next few episodes in this series where we will break down the rest of the letters. So technology, engineering, and math. And I will see you in the next episode. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of the Elementary STEM Coach podcast. I would love to connect with you over on Instagram at Naomi Meredith _ or send me an email to elementarystemcoachpodcast@gmail.com. Also, make sure to check out my website, naomimeredith.com, to see all the show notes from today's episode and shop my K-5 STEM resources. Any questions you have, needs for resources, or ideas for episodes, get in touch. I'll talk to you soon.